Hey folks, Pastor Sean coming to you with today's daily devotion. We are in 1 Timothy chapter 5, and we are at verse 19. 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 19. I'm going to read it to you from my screen right here. It says, "Do not receive an accusation against an elder except from 2 or 3 witnesses." Paul holds the elders in the church in a high esteem, and we do as well. He holds them in a high esteem and says, listen, don't let just somebody make an accusation against an elder, a pastor, a deacon, a leader in the church. Don't just let anybody do that, and don't just take it on one person's word against somebody else's. Make sure that when there's an elder who is in folly, who's in danger, who has done something, that there's 2 or 3 witnesses that back up this accusation. Now, let me say this to you. An accusation in today's world can destroy a man or woman of God. Just the accusation. And I say that with pure understanding that an accusation being made against me could very well mess me up in the long run. That's why the Bible tells us that out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, let a thing be established. And only take an accusation against an elder, against a pastor, a minister in the church, a deacon, a leader in the church, only take an accusation against them out of the mouths of 2 or 3 witnesses. Because a lot of times it'll be he said, she said. And Paul wants to go ahead and nip that before it ever gets started. He wants to go ahead and fix that problem before it gets started, and says, now, if you've got somebody who's going to say something against one of your leadership, make sure that it comes out of the mouths of 2 or 3 witnesses. What Paul is doing here is he's establishing a precedent. He's establishing a precedent saying that this is going to be the guidelines, that we're going to hold our leadership in esteem. Yesterday we talked about the verse right before that where it says, let the elders be counted double honor, especially those who labor in word and doctrine. Let them be counted for double honor. Hold them in higher esteem because they are the leadership, because they're your pastors, because they're their elders, because they're the deacons. Hold them in higher esteem because God holds them to higher accountability. And when an accusation does come, when somebody does say something, let it be out of the mouths of 2 or 3 witnesses. I had someone several years ago, I guess about 7 or 8 years ago now, called the overseer on me and said, Pastor Sean is doing this and this and this, and he's doing this and this and this. He's preaching this and this and this. And the overseer, who knew me well, our former overseer, Dr. Mike Baker, knew me very well. And he said, everything that you have told me that Sean Belcher is doing is Sean Belcher's job. He's the pastor of that church. He's supposed to be preaching what you told me he's preaching. He's supposed to be trying to get your kids to go to youth camp. He's supposed to be doing all the things that you have told me he's doing. All the things that you accused him of doing, he's supposed to be doing. So rather than burn me to the ground, that overseer understood the scriptures, that out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses an accusation must be made. He understood that there are always going to be people who don't like what you're doing. There are always going to be people who come against you. There are always going to be people who are going to have their feathers ruffled because it's no longer the status quo. But God, through the writings of Paul, established a precedent and said, don't just let one person break the system. Make sure that if there's an accusation made, that 2 or 3 witnesses who can attest to that accusation are there to testify and make sure that it is authentic. He starts the chapter off by saying, rebuke not an elder, but treat him like a father. So be very careful how people talk about you. Be very careful how you talk about people. Be very careful about anything that you may say or bring into judgment, because God will call you on it. Will bring you back to the standard. Is it just you having an issue with an elder, or do you have 2 or 3 people who understand that there is a sin that's happened, a failure, a moral failure has happened, something has gone wrong, and out of the mouths of 2 or 3 witnesses, an accusation can be made. And even then, there's a process that you go through to make sure that the elders, the pastors, the deacons, the leaders are not taken advantage of. So, this is good writing. This is good stuff. I hope you're enjoying it. I love you. I'm praying for you. I will see you again tomorrow. God bless you as always, is my prayer.